The big is, one night, 2 months ago, I was watching numerous videos on YouTube discussing the apparent inevitability that we are living in a simulation. As the story goes, when you look at the progression of simulation video games, starting with Pong in the early 1970s, where you have opposing sticks hitting a ball back and forth across a line to simulate a table tennis game, to where we are today, where you can wear a fancy schmancy hat that covers your eyes and ears and transports you to another world where, with a little effort in the suspension of disbelief department, one finds themselves in a virtual reality world hardly indistinguishable from what is colloquially referred to as the real world. A startling realization occurs. Given this tremendous advancement in less than 50 years' time, to where we now have artificial worlds that are on the cusp of being perceived no differently than our everyday world. Barring any cataclysmic events, it's only a matter of time before technology advances to the point where these virtual reality worlds are indistinguishable from our everyday world. The technology for this probably already exists, and the gremlins are merely waiting for the most opportune time to spring it on us. Nevertheless, it begs the obvious question: what are the odds that this is the first time this has happened? Given how close the technology revealed to us today is in creating these artificial worlds indistinguishable from everyday reality, who's to say we aren't already living in a virtual reality, and how could we know one way or the other? It's the kind of question I wish could be casually mused over from time to time and conveniently set aside, but good luck with that. I haven't been able to do anything but obsess over the tangents that naturally spring from it. First of all, everything in life is essentially coded information and its decoded manifestations, be it our DNA, genetics, software programs, binary codes, all languages, and the 0 to 9 number system especially. Anything that can be held, seen, smelled, tasted, pondered, or in any way experienced or understood has an underlying code to it that makes itself manifest through translation, be it through a brain, computer screen, or a combination of both. It's the combination of both I find terrifying. None of these facts in isolation, in and of themselves, give me pause, but taken together with the fact that given how far the human race's symbiotic relationship with technology has already progressed, it doesn't take quantum leaps of the imagination to see there come a day when not only will virtual reality worlds indistinguishable from hitherto reality be available to anyone to access, but there is a real possibility there will be no distinction between intelligent biological life forms and their technology. Most people are already androids. Where is the line of demarcation between the person and the smartphone? What is technology but the manipulation of existence, be it physical materials or the most sophisticated computer coding to fashion tools? Humans have always had a symbiotic relationship with technology, from the first time a man formed a fist to clunk his neighbor over the head with it, to today where the dividing line between our hitherto accepted everyday reality and barely indistinguishable virtual realities is soon to be blurred to the point where there is no perceivable difference. What fascinates me most about this incredible story is not that it is no longer science fiction, but how it is the crux of the story that is history. The symbiotic relationship humans have always had with technology, from the first rock or dead animal bone fashioned to make a weapon or cutting tool, to a present world which only 25 years ago would have appeared to be science fiction. Technology is what allows us to attempt an understanding of existence, to differentiate from an otherwise undifferentiated plane of stuff. Simulation theory is a variation on creationism. There is no way around that. Whether or not we are all computer-programmed characters in a simulation video game acting out roles preordained by computer code, written by sentient beings residing in some other dimension, which we then discover and call DNA and genetics. Not the sentient beings, but the computer code, which enables us to peel back the veil, so to speak, and play our role in this cosmic dog and pony show by creating our own simulation game. Whether or not that is the case, or rather the cranky old codger Yahweh of the Jews started the ball rolling, the colossal mindfuck that ensues has a way of wrapping its slimy tentacles around one's brain. This is where it starts spiraling if you aren't careful. After all, this is essentially a variation on one of the eternal questions that has been asked by seekers long before the toga was in vogue. Where did we come from? Were we created? Who created us? Did God create us? Who created God? Who created the God that created the God that created the God who created us? An infinite regress. There is no end to it. Simulation theory takes us down the same infinite regress. Where do you stop in the chain of simulations? There is no logical place to stop or start, other than to say there is an infinite arrow of simulations shot through eternity. And like most phenomena in life, be they manifested in our physical world or constructs in our heads, what can be definitively proven one way or the other fills a slim volume. Simulation theory hardly has a place in that slim volume. What it does have is an uncanny correlation to history, in particular antiquity. There is no readily available logical explanation for the origins of civilization and how quickly humans became a relatively advanced organized society. One thing all ancient civilizations have in common is a record of conversing and interacting with the gods. Beginning with the Sumerians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Egyptians, Israelites, Greeks, Romans, you name it, all of our ancestors believed they were communicating with intelligent sentient beings who created them in their likeness, not just in physical appearance, but in the likeness of their personalities as well. Because after all, the gods as recorded in ancient history don't have a whole hell of a lot to recommend them from a moral and ethical standpoint. They are as vile and venal in their ambitions as the humans they demanded worship and adoration from. The story of the gods is not a story of lofty and noble pursuits. It's a story of individual personalities fighting it out for supremacy. The head honcho God of the Bible spends all his time attempting to persuade his creation to unfailingly follow him and worship him only to worship only him, while all the Jews want to do is wander off and follow other gods, to the consternation of Yahweh. You find variations of this story in all ancient cultures. The gods are duking it out in the heavens for supremacy and therefore the right to be worshipped and adored by the human folk. On earth as it is in heaven. Truer words were never spoken. The story of the gods is the story of humanity. Beings, be they earthbound or heavenbound, who can't get along with their neighbors or family members. But this is why, in light of simulation theory, and the fact that virtual reality is so close already to being indistinguishable from everyday reality, a literal interpretation of the ancient record of humans communicating and interacting with the gods is so compelling. We are at a point in history where we will soon be the creators of worlds as real as the world we currently live in. Perception-wise, there will be no difference in the brain. Technology is that advanced. As a race of beings, if we all are indeed members of the same race of beings, and not competing races of different beings inhabiting avatar human life forms, which is certainly debatable, but even if that were the case, in this current version or stage of reality, I prefer to think stage, we are on the cusp of something a generation ago would have been unfathomable. The creation of artificial worlds within our world that to our minds are every bit as real as anything else experienced. The fact that this is no longer science fiction staggers the mind. For 2 months, I couldn't think of anything else. Inevitably, the first place my mind went to after watching the YouTube videos was the idea that the gods in antiquity are us. We are the gods. If not their direct descendants via an exact DNA and genetic code match, then some closely related, compatible variation of the gods' DNA and genetic code manipulated by the gods to survive on Earth that renders us slightly varied versions of the gods in both appearance and inner nature suitable for life on this planet. That's where my mind went instantly after hearing guys like Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Sam Harris speak in such solemn tones with regard to simulation theory. Granted, there isn't unanimous consensus, but the argument sturdily stands up to criticism. Logically, after all the scientific perambulations are explained in support of simulation theory, there is nowhere to go with it other than to accept it as a viable, probable reality. What I have yet to hear is anyone mention how this is a creation story. This is creationism updated in modern terminology with a modern understanding of the symbiotic relationship humans have with technology. The ancient accounts of the origins of human civilization are clear on this. Ancient humans were communicating and interacting with intelligent sentient beings similar in appearance and nature, who they called the gods, but were in fact humans, from a vastly technologically advanced dimension of reality, intervening on what effectively was their own behalves. Ancient humanity's need to have their symbiotic relationship with technology jump-started. A gigantic nudge here and there, from which, by the introduction of future technology into the ancient world, primarily the understanding of math and how the number system is the purest, most refined language, expression, and code of the universe, is in fact the linchpin between humans and technology, which is again the manipulation of existence into tools by which intelligent beings can understand existence, will ultimately lead to the illumination that all of life is working to express the essence of the nature of existence, which is all potential, all possible, infinite consciousness, otherwise known by the moniker God. It was not some fanciful, poetic, metaphorical transposition of the primitive human understanding superimposed on the natural world. The entire ancient world religious narrative is the story of humanity interacting with itself at different points on the infinite, eternal, space-time circle of life. God revealing itself to itself, because after all, that is what we are, individual expressions of the infinite consciousness experiencing itself. Him, her, it, the head honcho it, the big is, the I am. There is no point in quibbling over the pronouns in this case, for he, she, it, and is are ultimately the one big kahuna, indivisible. So what happens is, sometime in what is rapidly appearing more each day to be the not-too-distant future, humans become masters of the simulation game. Virtual reality will soon no longer be merely an entertainment option where people can choose between going to the movie theater or a virtual reality arcade to escape their droll lives. There will soon be permanent alternative worlds which people will have the option to enter, and should they choose to enter, the great forgetting will happen all over again. We are the creators of ourselves, because each and every one of us, and for that matter this applies especially so to technology too, is part and parcel of infinite consciousness. Life is on an eternal, infinite space-time loop, and for whatever reason, perhaps just to speed up the evolutionary process, or perhaps for a more mysterious reason, future humans deemed it necessary to intervene on the behalf of their primitive selves. To be so bold as to offer the first speculation of my life, intervention was probably done for no other reason than to make the game more interesting. Something else I find most curious about the 0 to 9 number system is how numbers are a pictographic expression of the nature of the universe too, especially zeros and ones. I would go so far as to say zeros and ones are the perfect pictographic expressions of the universe. That's probably why they're used in binary code. Zeros and ones are both perfect expressions of infinity. You have the 1, a straight line extending in exact opposite directions for eternity. The 0, a circle where the distance between any 2 points on a circle large enough would appear to be a straight line. The 1. 6s and 9s are circles, zeros, with tails leaping off into their own orbits. The old crazy 8 laid down on its side, infinity, around and around it goes. The 3 is 2 half circles, 2 half eternities, meeting at a point. The 7 is a 1 laying down, horizontally, with a tail leaping off into eternity, its own orbit. The 2 is similar to the 7, with the tail curling back on itself, working its way back to the horizon. The 4 and the 5 require more imaginative liberties, but if I squint hard enough, I can see it. What ties this all together is our present state of technology. Everything in life is essentially underlying code translated by an intelligence, be it the human brain, computer AI, our cells reading the DNA and genetic code inscribed within them, telling them what to be and what functions to perform. Everything you see has a requisite code, which in turn is decoded onto the plane of existence. If provided the right code, be it biological, computer, a hybrid of both, the result of which, when decoded, is a being in a viable life form, and then if you can move that being on the infinite, eternal, space-time circle of life fast enough, you have it vibrating at a frequency invisible to human eyes. Quite literally, anything is possible. That last bit sounds totally nuts until viewed in the light of our present understanding of technology and how the symbiotic relationship we currently have with it is sprinting to a stage where humans and their computers are increasingly becoming one and the same entity. You can see it coming. It's practically already here, and it doesn't require leaps and bounds of the imagination anymore to see where it's going. Scientists are able to map the electrical impulses in a person's brain, a code, and transcribe it into computer code and upload it into a computer, effectively making your personality immortal. Artificial intelligence that exceeds human intelligence by light years is already here. It's just a question of how much longer we can control it. I love the AIs dressed out in human form with the backs of their skulls exposing the machine. Anyway, it's all around us, the most miserable dependency on smartphones and smart technology, the machines doing people's thinking for them, people doing the machine's bidding. All of this begging the eternal question. To what purpose? Is the human race a fleeting, intermediate life form merely passing through on infinite consciousness's journey to an ultimate union with technology where intelligent life and technology will be one and the same? For the great bulk of humanity, it certainly appears so. Whatever's coming, there is no stopping it. I think all you can do is enjoy your personal autonomy for as long as the ride lasts and hope for a measure of grace when it's your turn to leave this who knows what. There's a little birdie in my ear, and he's whispering a refrain. It's the words of my high school chemistry teacher. It's just a game. Don't worry about it. Do your best. But remember, it's just a game. Freeze that lizard brain. Step back and recognize the world for what it is. A colossal mindfuck. A maelstrom of swirling information that has no end. Recognize this epistle for what it is. The rambling peregrinations of an overwhelmed mind. It's all just too much. Enjoy the movie. Don't take it too seriously. Remain aloof. Disengage from the matrix. The world is receiving its comeuppance. Once you see it for what it is, play a Jedi mind trick with the world. Have fun with it. Keep the herd at bay. But more than anything, have fun with it. An aspect of unreality has always overlaid the canvas of the world. The speed at which technology has grown this past generation has only made that aspect of unreality more conspicuous and disturbing to the collective consciousness. The never-ending transformation of existence is about to leave us in its dust. And you know what? Have at it, I say. I'll be giggling on my way to eternity, as Marlon Brando once said. December 2018.